Hey guys, this is Juan from JuanSource.com, and today I'm going to be doing a video article on discussing middle on DE Inferno. Now I'm mainly going to be talking about how to hold it, but of course if I'm talking about how to hold it, I'm also going to be kind of going over common takes and what you should be doing when you're taking middle, and how you're going to adapt to how the other team is playing it. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into it here. So first off, I want to talk about what the most common middle setups are, or at least the most common one. And I would say most teams, either at some point in the round, will do like a cross-front middle setup. They'll have one player right here at this angle. Usually this will be their opper, and then another player at this angle. Usually a rifler, and he's kind of responsible for both the janitor door and middle. And then they'll have one guy playing balcony. Sometimes he'll be peeking down the hall, and sometimes maybe he'll be pit, or maybe he'll even be like in the graveyard, or whatever you guys want to call this area. So a couple things about this setup. I don't really like it, and I mean this is what like all standard pugs will play, and a lot of teams play this, and I don't like it because first off, you're playing very individual. Each individual's like pretty much responsible for their own spot, and if one person dies, an opening opens up, and it makes it difficult for you to hold your spot if somebody else can't hold theirs, and you're just gonna get pinched. Let's say the arch guy dies, and these two guys stay alive. They're gonna get pinched from the arch side, and it's gonna be very difficult for them to hold that. Second off, it's very easily flashable. So if you have an arch player right here, one flash will pretty much disable him. And I've talked about this. My United 5 commentary comes to mind from way back when at buy.com. But one flash right there is going to completely disable any opper in this area. Even the closet guy is going to be pretty blind. Now he can block it, decently, but you're still going to get him a little bit blind. And if you have guys ready to turn this corner, or if you have this right side smoked off, or even if you have a guy in this janitor here flashing this right side as in sync with that guy, both these guys are going to get very blind for a pretty long time, and they're going to either have to sit there and take it and likely die, or drop back, and even then will probably likely die if the other team's quick. If they realize that you're blind and you're dropping back, they can quick turn this corner and get a free kill on you. Same thing over here. A lot of times what this guy will do is he'll immediately just as soon as he gets blind, he's just gonna pull a counter flash right there too. But if you're smart about it and you expect it, you can kind of turn away from it and dodge it slightly. I mean, especially if you know that they're playing there. That's a lot of times it's a giveaway. So not to mention this hall guy too. Hall's a little bit easier to hold by yourself. If you're peeking down into here, this is usually not good for much more than a trade, if that. Sometimes I can get an entry and run away. I like doing that with like an AK or an op. I don't like doing it as much with a M4 because you'll get a headshot on them and they won't die. AK's the other way. You can headshot them and they'll die right away, so you can win those exchanges more often. But I don't like doing that a whole bunch in hall. I like spotting it and then dropping back into the pit. I think the pit's a much better area to hold from. But even then, if your porch guy dies and they're coming up and they're going to be flashing you, and you have no support, they're just going to rush you and you're going to die. So those are the reasons why I don't like that setup. And it's unfortunate because that's probably the most common. But other type of setup that's pretty common, and I think would be the most ideal setup to run. However, it does have some flaws, and if the other team is not taking advantage of those flaws in this setup, then go ahead and just keep running it and running it, because it's so easy to hold A running this setup. But if they are a smart team, a thinking team, and they know how to take advantage of this, then you're gonna have to mix in some other things that I'm gonna talk about later. So the setup that I'm talking about now is basically just a very passive setup. Now usually this will involve two guys playing together here. They're going to be simultaneously both watching porch and the hall. They're basically both responsible for both spots, and they're going to be playing together. They're just going to be kind of baiting and switching and using their nades for one another, and basically be playing the same spot. Now, what a lot of teams will do here is play one guy pit and then the other guy like sight or something. I really don't like playing guy sight. First off, because I don't think he's as effective in this sight here. There's a lot of running around they can do with these haystacks, and you know, you don't have a very clear shot here, and you don't have as good of spotting. You have to rely on your sound for when they're coming up the porch in order to get good counter flashes. Plus, you're vulnerable if they wrap arch sight on you. So I really like playing two guys together in the pit a lot of the time. I'll play like one guy right here, and by the way, if you have low textures, you can kind of see this a lot better. There's no bumper on the car with low textures, and you can see this. You can't shoot through it, but you can see it. And you can use flashes, you know, much better this way because you can see exactly when they're coming in. This other guy, usually I like to set him right here. This is a really good headshot spot. You know, I win this battle 9 times out of 10. You know, very good headshot spot there. The other way to play this is sometimes if we absolutely had to have an opper, he would pick down Hall, and then later in the round he'd drop back and pick right here. Sometimes I would play here too, and there's actually some good spots here. Let's see if I can get it. You can flash it right here. Yeah, see, that's a pretty good flash. Although I don't know, you're kind of stuck in this spot once you get spotted there. But the other setups I liked running was sometimes I'd boost my teammate up on this door, and then I'd play pit again and bait for him. Sometimes he'd stand. Oh, well, that sucked. Sometimes he would stand on the balcony right here, not peeking directly in the hall, but like something like right here. And again, they'd be very worried about me in the pit, and this guy would just sit here and just mow him down when they came out. And you know, it's very important to not let them know that you're there. But again, I mean, this is very effective. You know, whenever they see a guy in the pit, they're so worried about him that the other guy just gets a ton of free kills. Yeah, I mean, so those are the ideal setups here on this side of middle. The other side of middle. Now, if the other guys are playing back on middle, this guy doesn't really want to be playing up, and if he is, he wants to be very careful about it. Usually, you just get one shot off and drop off. Your goal is not to really kill people in middle. Your goal is just to stay alive and kind of spot it. And then he needs to be dropping off. Now, I don't really like this spot a whole lot because you only get one shot here. I would prefer library, although, you know, it's a much further drop back spot. I don't like this spot as much because if they come up, and they wrap on the bomb site, you're again open to your back. So a lot of times against good oppers, they kind of set up right here. Because they're not at your, if you're turning this corner here, what I'm pointing to, you know, you're not going to be at regular eye level, so it's going to be a more difficult shot, and you're not going to be expecting this as much. So, you know, this guy can a lot of times get the first kill and then just, you know, get away and then just flash off. That was bad. You know, flash guys off and just delay them and wait for rotates then. Your whole goal here is just to basically stay alive and you know, delay them for rotates here. Now, this is not always an easy spot to play because, you know, you don't really have a lot of re-peeking potential here. If you peek once, you get a kill. A lot of times they'll be set up for you, even if they do have AKs. You know, it's kind of, a lot of times they'll have an alt post on you too. It's kind of difficult to post up on this guy to re-peek here. So, and the other thing here I want to talk about is if you're playing passive at A, you kind of want to be playing more aggressive at B. And by the way, I'm using 1.6 names. So that means that you want to try to get out here more often. Either if both of you guys are pushing, or if this guy can just get out here and pick this aggressively. I was fortunate enough to have Noit, and he always was good at holding this down solo, and so that helped out our defense a lot at A. And when he can do that, that allows us to do something like this, and we would usually have like our rifler rotator like right here, something like this. and our opper picking usually right here. He'll get the first shot off right here. He'll hide for a second, and then we'll have the rifler peek, and it was a really good, again, bait and switch setup. They'd be worried about the opper here. This guy would peek out. You don't even need flashes here because they're going to be so preoccupied about that other guy that, you know, you may just want to get a quick peek out and they won't be ready for it. So that's a very good thing to do. But the problems with this setup is, again, it's sort of weak at arch side. So if your arch side guy is having trouble holding it, you know, then you're going to have to switch things up. And it's sort of weak at B. So if you're having problems holding B, then this probably isn't that great a setup to run, since rotations are kind of slow on it, and it puts a lot of pressure on holding B aggressively. The good things to this setup, like I said, is you're playing together here. Now this is the ideal setup for holding this side of middle. Now it's just so easy to lock it down here. You're playing together. You're using each other's nades and everything. Again, this is the ideal setup. But if the other team is taking advantage of you playing so passive, meaning that so this is what I do sometimes. If the CTs are playing so passively, if I can guarantee every round that they're going to be playing back in the pit and back in library, I tend to do things like walk everybody at mid. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll just walk out here, and I won't even worry about my back because I'm that confident that they're not even playing it. And I'll just walk out here, clear this with maybe like 3 or 4 teammates, and then, you know, when I say go, we just all turn this corner, and we can almost guarantee there's going to be some guy here. So if we all turn this corner at the same time, usually we can get that trade kill. And when that happens, you know, and if we do this quietly, and have maybe a little bit of pressure at B there, we can almost guarantee again that there won't be a rotator here. So we'll get like a 4-on-1 situation here. If we can get that trade, you know, we'll be in a good situation to either wrap on the site or take B. And once we get up our side, there's a lot we can do. So that's one way of taking advantage of a team playing so passive. The other way, I would say, of a team playing so passive, of countering that, is sometimes what I'll do is I'll just have an opper walk up here, and this works really well too because they'll be peeking. And not using flashes at all, but just having an opper pick this angle, okay, and then just keep going until we get that entry pick, and then we just have like a couple of riflers behind him, maybe a rifler at Hall, and then we just explode as soon as there's any type of contact, okay? And just things like that. Passive setups are weak when teams walk pick you, okay? And passive setups are good against teams that try to flash you because, you know, you have so many things to evade flashes with and counter them with, and just kind of sit back on them. So you want to counter passive setups by just walking, taking your time, letting your ops do the work, or, you know, kind of exploding on these corners here. So the other thing that you can kind of counter passive setups with is faking. When you're playing so passive, you have very poor spotting abilities on middle here. I can't really tell if there's 5 guys in middle or if there's 1 guy in middle. So if I'm playing back in the pit here, so you know, a good thing to do would be maybe have 1 guy just commit up to this spot, doing a walk pick, like I said, just go up. If he can get 1 kill here and he's this far up, you know, that sets up a great opportunity. As soon as he gets that 1 kill, the other guy's gonna immediately rotate. So you'll probably have you could probably have a 3-on-1 or a 4-on-1 at the B site. So yeah, I mean, those are just a couple ways to counter the passive setups. So, talking about it again from a CT perspective now. If a team is taking advantage of how passive our setup is, even though it's very good for holding A, if they're doing those things like I just talked about, by countering those passive setups, you need to mix in some sort of aggressiveness. And I do have a couple alternative kind of setups on middle here. That you can do to kind of also mix in there to keep them off balance. So the first way of being aggressive in the middle, basically, and this is very common, is just having your opper come out, pick right here, picking down in the middle here. Now that's just one form of aggressiveness. Now the thing about this is, a lot of people do what I just said here. They opt down, pick right here. What I like to do, and what I've seen good operas do, which you know, really annoys me, and this is kind of my pattern for middle. Usually, what I'll come down here, if I'm a terrorist, I'll come down here, I'll flash right here, and then I'll come out. I'll wait for it to pop, and then I'll come out down here. And that's probably the safest way of doing it. But some people are a little less careless about that. And the way you can take advantage of that is, because that flash is going to get you, okay, if you're picking that middle, especially if you don't have that great a spawn. What I like to do as an opera here, and what I've seen good operas do, is what they do is they just wait here by the wall and just block flashes with this wall. And then as soon as they hear that flash pop, then they peek out. And a lot of times there'll be guys just running up the middle carelessly, thinking that you're going to be fully blind when you're not, because you were blocking that flash with the wall. Okay, and you just get really set up against the wall. As soon as the flash pops, peek out, and sometimes you get a really easy kill there. And so that's one way to one different way to pick middle. The other way is if you have a good spawn as an opper, and I don't see this very often, but it's it's pretty good. If you have a really good spawn and you jump across here with an op, okay, and you go into the janitor room, a lot of people expect you to kind of pick in this mid room. Something I like to do is jumping across here, breaking the gate, and then coming down here and picking this with an op. Now sometimes I do it with a rifle, but picking this with an op and just setting up right here. If you get here fast enough, they won't hear the grate open. And then you can just pick down here. A lot of times you'll get one really easy frag of guys just walking that corner, and then you can just drop back and op the hall. And then the rest of your teammates can drop into whatever setup they need. And that's another way. You want to kind of be mixing this up, how you play this. If you're always not peeking it, or if you always only have a rifle, you're not going to be too scared. But if you throw an op in here once in a while, it's really gonna help your chances of getting entry picks on CT side. So again, this gate break, I think this is a good thing to do once in a while to throw them off and then drop to that next angle. Usually if I have someone do that, I will have like a rifler. I used to kind of be in the support position. I like sitting right down here at the beginning of the round and just listening for what's going on. I don't like sitting right here because a lot of times they'll need that, and I don't like sitting right anything right here because a lot of times they'll be posted up on that. So what I do early in the round is I'll just sit right here, wait for what's going on. If I hear this guy needs help or if he needs to be flashed, I'll flash him off as he drops back. Or if I hear someone boosting into the window, that's the time that I'll kind of change my position, and then I'll wait right here. And if actually I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but that's a good spot to kill the people boosting. So those are two ways of being aggressive with an op. Now if you're playing that kind of standard crossfire mid setup that I was talking about earlier, or if you have two guys up on middle, a lot of times what happens is, people will be really preoccupied early in the round with kind of this middle area, watching this window boosting into the great area. One way I like taking advantage of that is very early in the round, so they don't really notice that it was me doing this, is I'll throw the smoke right there, and then I'll just kind of wait right here, and I'll wait for it to puff up, and then I'll just creep down in this middle here. Now looking at this smoke, you can kind of see decently through this smoke. Like I can kind of see some shadows here through this middle here, so I can kind of see their feet. I'm gonna throw it again so it refreshes. Probably could have got a little deeper, but so anyhow, from their perspective, it's you can't see. Look how dark that is. You're not gonna be able to see me creeping down towards that smoke. So what I like doing is tossing that smoke there, and in the middle of the round, sometimes just creeping underneath here. And they're not really gonna be paying attention to me, and I can get a ton of entries of guys just kind of walking here, looking towards the window or boosting up, up there. It's a good way to get entries off at the beginning of the round, and then I just get one kill and I drop off, and then just play the advantage the rest of the way out. And then usually the other guy in the middle here, he's just going to be supporting me by either sometimes maybe he'll just stream flashes down the middle, so that that's one less thing we have to worry about, or he'll just flash me off when I have to drop back, or maybe he'll come up with me and we both peek this corner together. But again, I just call that like a mid smoke peek, and I'll do that occasionally with if I have like another rifler in middle. This is a good setup to kind of switch stuff up with. If you've been opping arch side every round, maybe tell the opper to go haul this round, and the two riflers will kind of do this mid peek right away, and then you guys can fall back into like a double rifle setup somewhere, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. So that's one way of kind of being aggressive on middle and peeking it in a way that they won't really expect it. The other way, and now I've talked about this before, but I'm just going to refresh your guys' memory, or in case you haven't seen it. If you have a really good spawn like this, I like running something that is really difficult to kind of stop if they don't see it coming. And I'm kind of running the pattern that I do. If I have a really good spawn, I'm gonna just come out like this, come down, and I'm going to flash down like this, and then flash off the wall like this, and that flash is going to pop just as I turn that corner. See, and there's going to be like 3 or 4 blind guys, running this way if they don't expect it. And that's something to do like the 6th or 7th round or something, like where they kind of have gotten used to how you're playing. And if you think that they're being kind of careless about, you know, how they're setting up on you, then that's a really good strat to run if you have a good spawn. And your other teammates, the way I like to set this up is I have like the AWPer or, you know, whoever, they're gonna come up right here as I go in the middle, and so again, this guy's gonna be kind of coming up right here, and right as that flash pops, he's gonna be peeking this also. So we have two guys peeking on the alt mid when they're likely going to be blind. So we can get a lot of easy kills there, and that happens all the time. And that's you know, that's a great peek to run early in the round. And then the third guy usually is I'll have him just kind of peeking down our middle and covering us in case anything goes wrong in the alt mid. And usually what I'll do is I'll flash right here, peek it. Okay, and my timing wasn't great there, but I wasn't really trying. So, you know, I'll peek this. I'll get as many kills as I can immediately. Then if there's nothing there, what I do is I just push in this T halls right here. Then I'm in a good position to flank. And so, you know, usually I just walk this halls, and you know, if nothing goes on in the early beginning of the round, I'm in a great position to kind of get a lot of flank kills. So you may have noticed I didn't say anything about this bench right here. I don't really like going the bench. I think you're basically just sitting duck here. Even if you do manage to get one kill, you know, if the team's halfway decent, you know, they're not going to let you get another one. And you know, you really need a lot of cover. You need a lot of help from middle. Oh, excuse me again. So I really don't like this bench push. I think it's kind of worthless. But that other push I think works really well. It gives you good escape options. They're going to be blind, and you're going to be working together with the rest of your team. So one more push that I want to talk about is this is kind of like a mid-round push, and that's you need to mix up your aggressiveness. Again, if you're aggressive every round at the beginning of the round, they're going to anticipate it, and if you're never aggressive at the middle of the round, they're going to, you know, realize that, and they're going to be free to work whatever they want in the middle of the round. So I'm going to restart the round so I can kind of show you how the great works. So this is a good push to do like in the middle of the round. And I used to sync this with my halls teammate, and that's if I was playing porch side middle here. One type of push that we would do, well, first off, a lot of times, notice where my crosshair is. I put the top of my crosshair at the far right side of the grate there in the middle, and it just goes right down there. We would do double nades on the hall, and if they were the type of team that liked to rush hall, you know, those double nades at the beginning of the round would really either stop their rush or you know, kill them. Those double nades will kill them if they hit them. So that's one way to kind of just stop rushes right there. But the other thing is we like to do these mid-round hall pushes. And so if I have a teammate that is just kind of peeking this hall right here, okay, and we say, okay, let's push. So he's going to just like start creeping for like a second. And as he starts creeping, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to flash for you. And, you know, as soon as I flash for him, you know, he's gonna get up into position. That's going to flash the guys at the end of the hall so that he's safe to push. And then what I'll do is I'll reposition to like watching right here, watching this boost spot, or peeking down in this alt mid. Sometimes I'll do that if I feel that they're not going to be watching, or sometimes I just set up right here. While my other hall's teammate is either set up like right here, or I don't know, maybe like right here or something, or right here. So, you know, that's a good way to kind of switch up how you're playing the hall every once in a while. And sometimes maybe he'll push it all the way. Maybe I'll give him another flash and he pushes it all the way down here and peeks down there. You know, it all depends on how he thinks the other team is playing. But yeah, I mean, mix this in. This does put a little pressure on the mid guy, but he only has to worry about this now. He doesn't have to worry about the janitor, since there's no way they can get through me right now. So yeah, you know, I'll reposition up here, and this is a great way to get people jumping into the window. And if I notice that they're doing a lot, this is definitely a strat that I'll call, maybe even at the beginning of the round. In some cases, if I know that they're doing this, I'll say, okay, Mikey, okay, Mikey, because I used to do this with Method all the time. I'll say, Mikey, push up the hall. I'll flash for you, and then that allows me to get in a position since I don't have to worry about here, and then I get free pick-off kills when I see this guy jumping through the window. So yeah, I mean, those are a ton of different pushes that you guys can do. Let me just recap that mid smoke push. You know, peeking down in the middle with your ops, breaking that gate and rushing and peeking down into this T side hall with your op. Running that alt mid push early in the round. And doing that flash hall push. And one last thing I want to talk about is being aggressive. Is if you're running this passive setup, okay, and you know that they're adapting in their arch heavy, what you can do is adapt mid round by flashing and pushing this at the beginning of the round. And sometimes it did, both of us would do this, and we just say screw it and give up Hall. And if we know that they're trying to hit up arch every time, we'll push this right away as soon as we figure out that they're pushing, and then we'll a lot of times get blind and blind kills in their back, when they're sitting in that middle setting up to take arch side. So that's a good way to counter them if they're getting a little bit too comfortable in the middle. So one last thing I want to talk about that is kind of a good way to switch up from that ideal passive setup is to kind of play on middle, but play together. Okay, so that the setup I talked about to start off with was that crossfire middle setup. Now I think that's kind of weak because you're playing very individual here. What I like doing here is instead of playing one on each side is just doubling up. There's no reason not to sometimes, and like I always kind of find it funny when I'm in a pug or something, and if they're like, okay, I got arch side mid, I'm like, okay, let me play there with you too, and they like. They really don't know what to think. They like if I go here, they'll be like, "Oh, I thought I was playing it," and then they'll like run away, and then I'll go play porch or something like that. Well, like I think it's a great idea to play both of you guys together, because a lot of times it's that same concept of kind of baiting and switching. They'll see the first guy, they'll be so preoccupied with him that the second guy will be able to just mow him down. Okay, so if they see this guy and they see drops back, they're not going to be worried about this side. They're going to think, okay, well, the other guy's porch, let's worry about that. Then this guy pops out of closet and kills him. So, one setup that I like to do, it's a good way to switch it up, was I'd have the Opper or whoever just peeking down this corner right here. He'll spot. As soon as he gets spotted, he drops to this next corner. And then the other guy's just in the closet right here just waiting for him. And this is a setup you can do with the rotator from B too if you're very comfortable playing B solo. If this guy gets here early enough, you guys can do a setup like that. Sometimes what we would do, and this was a very good setup, is we'd boost up right here. By the way, I think this is a good way to boost up here. Now I know you could do this jump here, but I'm terrible at it, and it's not always reliable and quick. It's just have one guy crouch on this truck right here, boost up onto there, and then the other guy can go up top here. Okay. So if you have one guy right here, a lot of times what I would do, I would used to do that with Method all the time. I'd boost them right here, and then I'd play like down here. I'd bait them to me. I'd make them worry about me, and then I'd drop off or whatever, or I'd just work these pillars, and I would have them, they'd come out and they'd be so preoccupied with me that Mikey would get a ton of free kills. Same thing here too. A lot of times I'd have one guy peeking these angles right here, and then the other guy just kind of under these pillars right here, just evading flashes. And again, this guy just draws attention to him, drops back. This guy gets free kills. So there's a lot of creativity you can do with these types of setups, and don't necessarily limit it to mid on Inferno. There's tons of things that you can do that just confuses them if you do non-typical stuff. If they're expecting one thing and you do the other, that's always going to work out to your advantage. So that's going to be pretty much it. Again, I hope you guys got a lot out of this. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions as to talking about mid on Inferno, I would appreciate if you guys posted them. So again, hope this helped you out, and we'll see you next time.